So, good afternoon, dear friends. We are gathering today for the third Saturday book study group or book study project. We have not yet a group, reading loudly, chapter by chapter, the wonderful book written by Norman Fischer and Susan Soon, What is Zen? Plain Talk for a Beginner's Mind. And after the two introductions by Norman Fischer and by Susan Moon, and the first chapter, we will today read the second chapter, excuse me, please. But it is pretty long, so I have to try out whether it is probably too long, and we will have to cut it into pieces. But if nobody joins, can be the right way to stick to the plan and really read chapter by chapter. We will see. And I'm going to transform every little video into a YouTube film, so a video that so that you are able to listen to the book chapter after chapter. So this is the plan. Because we find that those words, which in my view is poetry or a way of a kind of prose prayer, may sink deeper into our heart minds. We start with a sitting meditation for some minutes. So it's 4:20, which was meant to be started, the reading. And we will have to try out if I record only from now, because it is not that I must show my nervous sit. I was quite kind of nervous and really needed it. And perhaps somebody would give his or her opinion whether I should record it with the sit or without. I think if we do with, you are perhaps feeling more invited to sit in silence before listening, and I find it really worthwhile to do this. It is as meditation before Dhamma talk, and we all know why we do this. So my apologies for my nervousness. Chapter 2, which is called Zazen. And please, I ask for forgiveness if I drink in between, for example, now. So sorry. Susan, what is Zen and how do you do it? Oh, he's saying, excuse me, what is Zazen and how do you do it? Norman, Zazen is basic Zen meditation. It is radically simple and easy to do. You can practice it whether you are a Zen practitioner, a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, a secular humanist, or none of the above. No matter what you believe or think, this simple practice of sitting down in silence and feeling the present moment will have a powerful impact in your life. Practicing Zazen 20 or 30 minutes a day will be enough. Less can also be okay. It's best to practice in the morning before your day begins and your mind's wheels have started spinning. But other times of the day can also be okay. In Zen monasteries and temples, Zazen is practiced formally several times a day. In sesshins, respectively retreats, it is practiced all day, for many days in succession, from early morning till nighttime. To practice Zazen, simply sit up straight on a chair or a meditation cushion or bench while paying attention to your sitting posture, your breathing, and your mind. If you sit on a chair, it is best to keep your feet flat on the floor and to sit evenly on the seat without using the back of the chair for support if possible. It is easier if the chair is not too soft. Several types of meditation cushions are available. A traditional Soto Zen meditation cushion is round and filled with buckwheat hulls or kapok. On a cushion, you fold your legs in one of the several positions, full or half lotus, both feet or one foot on your lap, Burmese, both feet on the mat or floor in front of you, or crossed ankles, Taylor style, though this is not quite as grounded because your knees tend to float in the air and having both knees on the mat is more stable. You could also sit in a kneeling position with the cushion set on end, tall-wise, sitting as if the cushion were a horse with your legs to either side of it, knees and shins on the mat or floor. Or you could use one of the many meditation benches now on the market at yoga stores or online. The bench will enable you to sit with your calves and feet tucked underneath the seat. Once you have figured out the best way to arrange your legs, sit up straight on your cushion or chair. Unkinking and lengthening the spine is an important factor in promoting alert awareness. Relaxing too much makes you sleepy. Sitting up straight puts you in a posture of full human dignity, which in itself will promote awareness and a sense of your own nobility. I think of this sitting upright as allowing myself to be lifted from within, rather than willfully imposing a rigid posture on yourself. You're allowing your body to be uplifted, letting this natural opening occur. To help this along, gently rotate the pelvis forward, which will arch the small of the back slightly inward. Let the crown of your head float up toward the sky. Let the shoulders be square and the heart area open. This should feel like a gentle lifting, not a martial rigor. Tuck your chin in a little so that the vertebrae in your neck are not crowded. Once you have found a balanced upright posture, begin to pay attention to how your body feels as it sits. First, feel the pressure of your rear end on the chair or cushion. Notice the feeling of being supported from below, literally. The chair or cushion supports you, the floor supports the cushion, and the earth supports the floor. You are literally being supported by the earth when you sit. Now you can feel that support and entirely release your weight to it. Your weight connects you to the earth. In outer space, you don't weigh anything. Next, feel other parts of your body sitting. Notice your neck and head and facial muscles. Notice your shoulders and arms, your hands, your spine, your chest, your heart area. The classical Zen hand position, mudra, is left palm on top of right palm, gently curved, with the palms held in the lap, thumb tips gently touching. The upper arms are loose at the side, not rigid or tight. Hands and arms form an oval. Holding the hands and arms in this way gives an alert, gentle focus, awake, and yet relaxed. Now begin to pay attention to your breathing as it rises and falls in your lower belly. There's no need to create a special breath, just to be attentive to whatever breath appears. In, out, rising, falling. Usually just paying attention changes the breath slightly, making it a little slower and deeper. If it helps, you can count each breath on the exhale, lightly, from 1 to 5, beginning again at 1 when you're done, or when you lose count. If you don't want to count, or if you get tired of it, you can just follow the breath as it comes in and out at the belly. If you get dreamy or lost, counting again will help. Zazen is fundamentally sitting with the basic feeling of being alive. What constitutes the basic feeling of being alive? Being embodied, breathing, conscious. This is what it feels like to be alive. Every moment, your life and all your feelings, thoughts, and accomplishments depend on the fact that you're embodied, breathing, and conscious. But most of us hardly ever notice these experiential facts. In Zazen, the task is just to be present with this basic human experience and nothing else. Simply sitting in awareness of the feeling of being alive. Of course, a lot of other things are going on when you do Zazen. Thoughts, physical sensations, emotions, memories, dreams, complaints. None of this is a problem or a mistake. The important thing is simply to return the attention to the breath and the body as soon as you notice you have forgotten about it. It's good to notice what has drawn you away, to appreciate it, and to remember that it is just exactly what had to be happening in that moment. But then, without further ado, come right back. No tears and recriminations. Just come back to the feeling of being alive in the body and the breath. And there you are. In addition to this basic practice, excuse me, and a special application of it, Zen is also famous for a style of Zazen that involves the contemplation of a koan, a Zen story, phrase, or theme. Perhaps the koan or theme might be something that arises from your life. Here the techniques is to come to attention as I've just described, and then to introduce the object to be meditated on, usually by reducing it to a word or phrase that you repeat with a breath. You concentrate on it, not ignoring, but not grabbing onto all your various thoughts and speculations about it, until it is reduced to its nub. Staying with that, you break through finally to release and insight. There are many colorful stories about this practice, of students coming to teachers to present their responses to their koans and being summarily wrung out. The teacher rings a little bell signifying the end of the interview, until some time later, after heroic effort, they finally answer the koan properly, according to the tradition. In our Soto Zen style of practice, we have our own gentler, more impressionistic, and less regimented version of working with koans. But mostly in Soto Zen, we just sit with the feeling of being alive, as I have described. Susan, how is Zazen different from Christian or Jewish contemplation? And how does it differ from other forms of Buddhist meditation? Norman, as I said, Zazen practice can be and often is done by Jews, Christians, secular, humanists, or anyone who feels it would be beneficial or enjoyable. For Christians and Jews, the feelings and ideas surrounding the practice usually include some reference to and some feelings about God, or in Christianity, Jesus. There may also be some words or prayers added to the basic sitting from time to time. For Zen practitioners, there are also feelings and ideas surrounding the practice that have to do with Zen teaching and respect for the Buddha. In Dogen's classical formulation, Dogen is the 13th century Japanese founder of Soto Zen. To do Zazen is to actually be, in some ineffable way, the Buddha, sitting under the Bodhi tree at the moment of enlightenment. While Dogen cautions us not to think such a thought, that would be a little arrogant, his teaching does remind us that there is something inherently sacred and profound about sitting this way. I have been referring to the many Jews or Christians whose contemplative practice has been influenced by Zazen or other forms of Asian meditation. There are also many contemplative practices native to Judaism and Christianity that may be quite different from Zazen. Music, for one, chanting, singing, or meditative reading of scriptural or liturgical writings is probably the main contemplative practice of Judaism and Christianity. But both traditions also have more esoteric concentration practices that sometimes, like Zazen, employ silence. How does Zazen differ from other forms of Buddhist meditation? On one hand, not much. Western Buddhism is comprised of very broadly three traditions that come from the three Asian forms of Buddhism. I mentioned in the beginning the Vipassana movement, which comes from Theravada Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism with its many schools and teachings, and Zazen. And Zen. Each of these three main traditions has branches and sub-branches. And within any particular branch of any tradition, there will be individual differences between teachers. In short, if you go to different Buddhist places to learn meditation, you might find slightly or even widely divergent details in instructions, even within one school or even within one center with several teachers. Still, the meditation practiced in all three traditions is pretty much the same. No matter where you go to practice meditation, it is likely that you will receive basic instructions similar to those I've given. Sit still, pay attention, breathe. Details and emphasis might differ, and certainly the way the practice is presented or understood might be different. But the basic practice is not so different. For instance, Vipassana meditation halls are usually informal. People wear casual clothing and may come in and out during a sitting. In a Vipassana retreat, you might be encouraged to examine or to purify your mind. There might be guided meditations on loving kindness. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is often quite a bit of talking and chanting that goes along with the meditation. Maybe more explanation than meditation. You might be taught to do detailed visualization exercises when you are studying particular texts. All this in a meditation hall that is probably highly decorated with colorful tanka, which are sacred paintings, and large Buddha statues. Zen meditation halls are austere, intense, and formal. People usually, but not always, wear dark, subdued clothing. In Zen meditation, you might be encouraged to be present each and every moment, not only when sitting, but as soon as you enter the hall, as you take your seat, as you leave. There will be specific instructions about how to stand, sit, and walk in the hall. No one comes late, and no one leaves during a sitting. One of the most important historical facts about Western Buddhism is that in the West, for the first time, all the various Buddhisms are operating side by side, and many practitioners and teachers will have significant experience in more than one kind of Buddhism. Because of this, there is a lot of mixing and matching. So the differences between the styles and schools are probably less important in the West now than they have ever been in the history of Buddhism. Susan, How important is it to do Zazen in full or half lotus? Does it really matter what position you sit in? As I said, it does matter that you sit up straight, with full human dignity, spine lengthened, head on straight, body open and relaxed. Sitting in full or half lotus facilitates this and is worthwhile to master if you can, especially if you intend to practice Zen formally and with some intensity. But you can also sit up straight on a chair or bench. Sometimes people with injuries can't sit up straight. If so, then you sit in whatever way you can. Excuse me. Zazen is very much a physical practice. The body is never an insignificant detail, as if meditation were a matter of mind and spirit apart from body. Zen practice understands mind, body, and spirit as being one experience, one activity. So whatever your posture, you pay attention to it as it is. Susan, how much pain should you sit through? Why should you sit through any pain at all? Isn't pain a signal that something is harming your body? When you touch a hot stove, it hurts, and you pull your hand away to keep from getting burned. This is an important question, says Norman. To talk about it, maybe we should make a distinction between easygoing everyday sitting and the more intense sitting practice in a sesshin. Intense sitting in a sesshin is essential for someone who wants to devote significant time and effort to Zen practice. With intense sitting, there can be a lot of challenge and insight, moments of awakening, transcendence of the usual constraints of personality, powerful development of faith, and understanding of the teachings. But intensely sitting still for long periods of time will likely involve some physical discomfort, if not pain. This is why working with pain is such an important part of classical Zen practice. You work with pain by simply committing yourself to sitting still no matter what. I sometimes encourage practitioners and sesshins to literally take a vow at the beginning of each period of meditation that they will sit still and not move until the bell rings to end the period, and to establish a powerful connection to the breath so that when pain arises, they can breathe through it, feeling the breath equally with the sensation of pain while feeling the whole body, not just the painful part. One of the most powerful things you learn from sitting still in the midst of pain is that pain is two things. It is, of course, primarily a physical sensation, but it is also the psychophysical aversion to the primary physical sensation. This aversion appears as a cacophony of resistance in the body to the pain, as well as painful emotional thinking, including blame of others, in brackets, the timekeeper forgot to ring the bell, or self-blame, in brackets, I'm such a wimp, or fear, in brackets, what if I can never get up again, despair, anger, and so on. If you can sit still for all this and keep breathing, eventually you discover that it is the aversion much more than the primary sensation that hurts. Eventually you can cut through and usually all of a sudden drop the aversion. In that moment, astonishingly, you realize that the physical sensation itself is not so bad. Only the resistance of the mind and the body you're tensing up to avoid the pain dissolves. No, excuse me. Once the resistance of the mind and the body you're tensing up to avoid the pain dissolves, the pain is far less than it seemed to be. Sometimes pain miraculously disappears completely, and you feel light and full of ease. But even if not, you experience that the sensation of pain can be present, but that you don't mind it. It's just there. You accept it, and it is okay. This is a liberating experience that you will quickly begin applying to other pain in your life. Spiritual pain, psychological pain, emotional pain. So yes, working with pain is important. On the other hand, you can't be foolish. If it seems like your sitting still too long is causing damage to knees or to nerves, then you need to back off. Notice how you are when you stand up after sitting. If there is persistent numbness or pain after you get up, that's a sign that you should back off. For the next period, you can sit still till it seems to be too much, and then sit still for 5 breaths more. It is unlikely that you will hurt yourself in that amount of time. After the 5 breaths, you can change your posture to a resting position while continuing to pay attention to your breathing, and then come back to some other posture for the remainder of the sitting. The challenge in all these comes less from the body than the mind, all the thinking and emotion and emoting. The trick is to keep things simple. Take care of your body reasonably and leave it at that. Studying your mind, your fear, your self-doubt, and so on will make whatever pain there may be worthwhile. I'm sure that doing Zazen with some basic common sense, even quite intensely, won't have any bad effects on your body. All this is about intense sitting. In ordinary everyday sitting, pain is not an issue. If for some reason it becomes one, it is perfectly okay to move the body to a more comfortable posture if you want to. This can be done while continuing to pay attention to body, breath, and mind. Of course, you can also move your body during sesshin too. Most people do when they feel they have to. Logically, one would think that if everyday sitting is good, intense sitting must be better and more serious. But I think this isn't the case. The two are just different. Plenty of people do Zen practice without sitting sesshins. But sesshins add another dimension to your practice, and doing them will affect the feeling of your everyday sitting. It would be nice if pain were entirely avoidable. It is easy enough to avoid it in meditation. But in the rest of our lives, pain is not avoidable. So learning to work with pain in meditation is worth, well, the effort. Susan. Sometimes I get really sleepy during Zazen, and I nod off constantly over and over again. As hard as I try, I can't keep myself awake. Even if I dig the fingernails of my left hand hard into my right palm and stretch my eyes wide open. I feel ashamed, but it's not really my fault, is it? So why not accept the situation and take a nap right there in Zazen? First of all, sleepiness is just a fact, says Norman, not a matter of fault. And yes, maybe you are tired and need a nap, but then you should take it on your bed, not in the zendo. But sometimes you got a good night's sleep, your day has been easy enough, yet you fall asleep in Zazen anyway. In that case, there must be another reason for your sleepiness. Maybe you are avoiding yourself or avoiding stillness because it is scary. Or maybe you are bored with your practice or your life. Then it is better for you to go on sitting even if you have to wake yourself up again and again. I know this is unpleasant, but eventually you will understand better what's going on with you and you'll be able to stay awake. Or maybe you won't and you'll keep on falling asleep for years. If that's the way it is with you, then you just have to accept that it is that way, not some other way. There are some tricks you can try to keep awake in Zazen. In a break, you can take coffee, tea, or water, or you can splash cold water on your face. Sitting, you can remind yourself that life is brief and you can't afford to waste precious meditation time. In some settings, certainly at home, you can meditate standing up. These things might help. In any case, there is a powerful virtue in simply adhering to the discipline of regular sitting, even if it doesn't seem to be doing you any good. Having a commitment to a spiritual path, expressed by your sitting, makes a big difference in your life. Even if you are sleepy and feel like you're not getting anywhere. Susan, why do we sit facing the wall? Why not sit by a stream and look at a beautiful view like the sages in all Chinese scrolls? Sitting outdoors is wonderful. Sitting by a stream or a mountain is wonderful. Feeling the air, sensing the presence of other living beings, hearing the natural sounds. In particular, I've always appreciated the everyday contemplative practice of gazing out at a view. What's so great about a view? Theoretically, nothing. Yet gazing out at a long open vista is profoundly satisfying, expansive, and calming. It literally gives you perspective and a feeling of spaciousness. That's why property with a view is always more expensive. But that practice isn't exactly the same as Zazen. Zazen is simply sitting with the feeling of being alive, beyond self and other, beyond inside and outside, beyond enjoyment and lack of enjoyment. Just being alive. For that, it is best to minimize external distraction, however pleasant, so it makes sense to sit looking at a wall. This is how we practice in Soto Zen. In Rinzai-zen, practitioners usually face the center of the room. Susan, why do you keep your eyes open? Can I sit zazen with my eyes closed if it makes me feel more contemplative? Norman answers, it's fine to sit with your eyes closed if you want. I often do. Most Vipassana and Tibetan meditators too do. But if you have the problem of being sleepy in zazen, maybe sitting with closed eyes is not so good for you. The point of sitting with eyes open, the classical Zen style, is to remain present right here where you actually are. One of the main points to be appreciated in Zazen, as I noted in my last answer, is that there is no inside or outside. In Zen, we typically do not speak of meditation as going within. Withdrawal from the noisy, disturbing world to a more peaceful inner realm. What is world anyway? World is perception of world, action in a world. For a person, there is no world outside of being a person. When you sit in Zazen, you sit in the middle of the profound fact that outside and inside are conventions, not fundamental realities. Take hearing, a sound for instance. Is the sound outside or inside? Of course, it's outside. The truck is rumbling by on the street, not in your brain. But of course, it's inside. Your ear and your brain produce the sound you are hearing. But there wouldn't be a brain or an ear if there were no outside, no sounds, no air, no planet. Your whole life is like that, inside, outside. Even your breathing, your life force, is inside, outside. Air coming in from outside, going out from inside. When you close your eyes, you tend to withdraw, to go within. Forms of meditation that emphasize or assume a distinction between inside and outside will instruct you to sit with eyes closed. But in Zen, we always say to open your eyes. Don't look around, don't gawk, because then you lose the inside. Keep the eyes downcast, half open, and softly focused, so you are not looking at anything. Anyway, there is not much to see facing a wall. Still, open eyes will keep you grounded here in an environment. As long as you are alive, you are grounded in an environment. But if you have the feeling for inside outside pretty well and don't get dreamy, otherworldly, or sleepy when you sit with closed eyes, then sure, close your eyes if you like. So we have done almost until 5 in Europe or another time. And I would like to invite to a small break, just 5 minutes for anything, to drinking, stretching, kinhin, whatever is needed, and then I will go on until 25 past this full hour. So here we are again, and I think we can make it. We have 20 minutes, as from now, perhaps even less. So I just will go on. Susan is asking the following. Is it better to sit in a zendo with other people than to sit alone at home? Norman, the best thing is to sit where and as you can. The idea that it is better to sit in a zendo with others can be quite unproductive if it results in your excusing yourself from sitting at all, since the zendo is inconveniently far away. I'm always dubious about better. It is usually a trap. Yes, it's very good to sit in a zendo with other people. The sense of community, of shared practice is powerful and important. It can inspire you to sit with more intensity and focus. Sitting with others is a beautiful gift others are giving to you, and you are giving to them. They encourage you, You encourage them. Sitting alone doesn't have these advantages. On the other hand, sitting alone is simple and peaceful. If you can do it regularly, it gives you a powerful sense of self-respect and independence. You feel good that you are capable of such discipline in such a noble undertaking. But sitting alone can also become too self-referential. It can be insular, isolated. It can be distorted. So I recommend a daily practice of sitting alone, if that's the way you have to do it, and sitting with others as and when you can, recognizing that sitting with others really is important. I myself, after living in Zen monastic settings for decades, now sit alone or with my wife on a daily basis, but sit with others several times a week as well. I recognize that there are people for whom sitting with others is impossible because they live too far away or for some reason simply can't get to a sitting place. In that case, it is important to listen to talks online so you have a sense that you're not just doing this on your own as a private matter, that there are others involved, even if you only feel them through their voices. In maintaining a home practice, is it all right, says Susan, if I sit for just 10 minutes every morning? What about 5 minutes? How long do I have to sit for it to count? Again, I resist the idea of one way better than another, or one way being officially sanctioned while another way is not. All practice is serious and important, if the intention is sincere. I think it is good to sit for about a half hour, 25 minutes maybe, 20 minutes maybe, as I said earlier. In that amount of time, usually most people will settle and experience some degree of calmness or concentration. But if my saying that provides an excuse not to do it at all, because 20 to 30 minutes does not seem manageable, then yes, sit for 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Remember that Zen practice is a spiritual or religious practice, not an exercise program. The point is not how good your performance is, but simply that you are committed to doing it faithfully, regardless of how well. As I said in response to your question about falling asleep in Zazen, you do make an effort to try to wake up. But if a sleepy Zazen is your practice, then that's just the way it is. So yes, sit for half an hour, but if you can't, if sitting for 10 minutes is your practice, then that's the way it is, and it's okay. The way it actually is always better than the way you think it is supposed to be. Excuse me, this is my sign, because for me it is probably the most important sentence of the many important sentences of the book. Allow me please to repeat it. The way it actually is always better than the way you think it is supposed to be. Practice is always a matter of the way it actually is, not some other way. Susan, can you be a Zen practitioner without sitting Zazen? This question raises another question. What's a Zen practitioner? And immediately we are talking about definitions. Definitions matter, otherwise this question wouldn't arise. Most people who practice Zazen and are members of Zen Sanghas would say that Zen practice requires that you do Zazen. Otherwise, you are interested in Zen, have read books about Zen, think about Zen, maybe even live what you consider to be a Zen life, but you aren't really a practitioner. On the other hand, maybe this is too small a view of Zen practice. I feel that people are entitled to their own self-description, their own senses of how they live their lives. Why am I or any other Zen practitioner to tell others that they can't assign the label Zen to their life if doing so feels right to them and inspires them in some way? I think it is entirely possible that someone could have a powerful Zen understanding and live a powerful Zen life without ever doing the Zen. Then there's the person who has spent long years sitting in Zazen, but no longer feels the need to sit. Such a person may be quite embedded in the Zen community, have a deep and sincere appreciation and understanding of the teachings, be moved by the rituals, but maybe now at a later stage of practice feels like sitting is no longer for him or her. In fact, I have known practitioners for whom this has been the proper course of things. Zen to Zazen is not the only practice in Zen. Zen practice includes many other activities: chanting, prostrations, textual studies, sewing robes, making offerings, and other acts of devotion and service. For some, one or more of these might be their primary practice. This was and still is commonly the case in Japanese Zen. Susan: when I sit Zazen, my mind refuses to settle. I've been told, let the thoughts go and just return to the breath. I try, but I can't. The thoughts won't let me go. If you were inside my head, you would see what I mean. Are some people's brains better suited to Zen practice than others? Could my difficulty be physiological? Norman: the instruction to let the thoughts go and just return to the breath is good. Even if, as you say, the thoughts won't let you go, that's okay. Just keep on letting them go gently, persistently, and that will be Zazen. You don't have to not think to do Zazen. People definitely differ in all ways. So yes, it's possible that the way your brain works, which is partly a matter of habit, not just physiology, makes it more difficult for you to focus in Zazen. Some people can sit still and focus easily. Others find this almost impossible. Most of us are someplace in the middle. But if you carefully consider the way Dogen presents Zazen, it turns out that these differences are not so important, because for Dogen and Soto Zen, Zazen per se is being presence itself, regardless of the particular form that present takes. Yes, when you sit, it is absolutely essential that you make the effort to return to the breath. So still present, to stay still, present, focused. But as long as you make your best effort, it doesn't matter what happens. Maybe you are focused and still, maybe not. The important thing is you show up. You keep trying. The virtue of Zazen is there. In Soto Zen, as I've been saying, Zazen is a religious act, not a skill to master. There's no such thing as a good, better, best Zazen. I never think of it like that, and most experienced Zen people I know don't think of it like that. Susan: what if during Zazen I start having a lot of creative ideas about a book I'm writing? Why not follow the thread of my thoughts and take advantage of the muse's visit while I have a chance? As a writer myself, I can appreciate your question, but Zazen is for Zazen's sake, not for the sake of your creative work. I seldom have ideas for poems or writing when I sit, and if I do, I quickly come back to the breath and let them go. I have no regrets about this because I have faith that when it is time for me to have an idea for writing, I will have an idea. If the idea I had while I was sitting was worthwhile, I am confident that it will come back to me when it is time. If not, then something else will come. I think this attitude is very good for my creative work. It helps me to be loose and relaxed. I feel that Zazen is essentially creative. It clears the heart, returning it to presence, to zero, to emptiness, which is the ground of creativity. In a famous metaphor, Suzuki Roshi, the Japanese founder of our lineage in America, compared Zazen to turning the soil. When you sit, you are turning the soil, preparing it for planting. Turning the soil adds light and air to it. If you practice turning the soil, your plants will grow easily and flourish. I'm quite convinced that my Zazen practice is essential to my work as a writer, but not in the direct way that you are suggesting. On the other hand, it is no sin to get up from Zazen, assuming you are writing alone, sitting alone and won't disturb others, and write something down if you feel compelled to. Buddha probably wouldn't mind, but that doesn't mean that you'd sit every day with a notebook and pen by your seat. That would be going too far. Susan, why do we walk so unbelievably slowly during walking meditation? I can hardly keep my balance each time I take a step. Norman, there are fast styles of walking meditation too. The point is to pay close attention to body, breath, and mind when you are walking, just as when sitting. Walking slowly promotes this. I know what you mean about balance. So maybe walking slowly is also a good chance to develop better balance, physically as well as spiritually. If you find you just can't keep your balance no matter how hard you try, then you can skip the walking periods or go out and walk on your own at a pace you can manage. There is always a way to practice, no matter what shape you're in. Walking slowly is most inclusive of everyone, young and old, and as you know, in our style of practice, we do everything together, walking in the meditation hall in single file like a line of dignified Buddhas. But it is a style, just a particular way to practice. There are other ways as well. When you do a particular style for a while, you usually come to love it and prefer it to other styles. Or maybe you take it for granted and get tired of it, or are interested in other styles, which may seem better because they are different and novel. Susan, what if there is a distracting noise outside, like a leaf blower? Or what if the person next to me keeps clearing her throat and it drives me nuts? If there's a mockingbird singing in the plum tree, I listen with joyful concentration. Am I being a bad Buddhist to enjoy the song of the bird and not the song of the leaf blower? Norman, these are interesting questions. You mention annoying noises while you are sitting zazen, but this question could be extended to other sorts of activities and other sorts of annoyance, and there are so many that it would be very useful for living to have a better strategy for dealing with annoyance. If small things drive you nuts, your life is going to be pretty frustrating and stressful. If you are not so bothered by small and even larger things, you will have more peace. When you sit, there are always some sounds. And if you are not sitting at a retreat center deep in the countryside, then yes, sounds of trucks, leaf blowers, car alarms, loud passers-by will be part of your experiences. If your mind is pretty still, sounds don't bother you much. If your practice is regular and steady, this composure can pervade more or less the rest of your life. If you are doing zazen in the country, you will hear the sounds of birds and wind. These natural sounds are pleasant and support the calmness of your sitting. If enjoying natural sounds when you are sitting makes you a bad Buddhist, then the world is full of bad Buddhists. Chinese and Japanese Buddhist poetry is rife with bad Buddhists. We were talking earlier about aversion to pain when you are sitting. The same applies here. Once you're unhooked a bit from your aversion, you can hear the silence in the middle of every sound. I'm not kidding. There is a kind of peacefulness in the middle of the leaf blower's roar. Once it's just a sound, absent the aversion. When you hear it like that, you don't mind it so much. The unpleasant sound is just there. The silence is there too. Doing zazen helps you to notice and appreciate that everything passes. When you are sitting still, doing nothing, you can't help but notice that everything is coming and going all the time, moment by moment. When you don't like it, that things continually and relentlessly pass away, this fact of life can be very annoying, even dismaying. But when you accept it and are willing to let it be as it is, you experience impermanence as peaceful. This is connected to the sound of silence I was just talking about. What you hear in the silence at the heart of the leaf blower's sound is that sound's passing. In any sound, you can hear the true nature of that sound, that it arises and passes. This is inherently peaceful if you allow it. You can actually hear it. Sitting with composure is sitting in the middle of impermanence. I have always been surprised at how quickly, when I am sitting in zazen, sounds melt away, pleasant ones as well as unpleasant ones. Car alarms, leaf blowers, bird song, wind sounds, all might last for a while but never that long. They go away and you are still sitting there, the silence now that much deeper. As you point out, we love some sounds and are annoyed by others. Preferences. Sitting definitely helps us to develop patience with preferences. When you have patience, it is possible to live free of preferences. Susan, and we are now coming to the last page. But could I really learn to live with no preferences, to listen with no preferences? What would that do to my enjoyment of chamber music? Norman, I think we always have preferences. That's life. One prefers to live, not die, and beyond this, there are many other preferences. So we won't have no preferences, but we can be free within our preferences, free to enjoy them, free to let them go as the occasion dictates. Being bound to and by one's preferences is not a good thing. At the extreme, we call it obsession, addiction. Being free from preferences, you can enjoy even something you don't prefer. There are degrees of this. If you are more or less free of your preferences, you can enjoy the chamber music fully, because a mistake in the performance doesn't detract you from your enjoyment. You aren't comparing possibly unfavorably this performance to others you've heard. You can appreciate the music, maybe even more because of the imperfection and the particularity of the occasion. And then you can go outside after the concert and also appreciate the nighttime sounds. Susan: this doesn't really answer my question about chamber music. A little mistake in the performance is fine, but why would I get a ticket to hear the Juilliard string quartet playing Beethoven rather than spend the same amount of time sitting on a bench at a busy intersection and listening to the traffic? I mean, there is something really wonderful to be valued and appreciated and enjoyed about beautiful, well-executed sounds. Yes, I agree, says Norman. But what I've said doesn't obviate your appreciation of the Juilliard string quartet playing Beethoven. It does mean that you might also appreciate the sound of traffic, though of course you'd see a difference between the two. If you are saying that in order to appreciate excellent music, you must also be annoyed by or be indifferent to other less excellent sounds, then maybe you are all right. Maybe Zen practice is bad for your art appreciation. Come to think of it, over the years, my Zen practice has made me see art and non-art as less different from one another. I actually like Beethoven's string quartets quite a lot. But maybe since I can also appreciate other less artistic experiences, I'm less motivated to attend concerts. Preferences are a double-edged sword. The stronger your preferences, the stronger your antipathies, the more you will dislike things you do not prefer. The only people I have ever met who dislike flowers are gardeners. I know gardeners who say with passion they do actually hate certain flowers. How can you hate a flower? But when you have strong preferences and passionate aesthetic commitments, you can actually hate certain flowers. So this bow goes to Norman, Roshi, and Sue Sensei in such a fruitful dialogue. And I'm happy that time is just saying we have 1 minute left. How beautiful is that? I had not assumed that. I would like to offer a dedication, improvised one. May you, all of you who listened or will listen to this humble contribution to spreading the Dharma, safe and healthy. During the pandemic, may your beloved ones be safe and healthy. May all beings be safe and healthy. May they be sheltered and fed. May they have something to drink, enough to drink. May they meet their basic needs. And may they meet a warm hand when they are in despair and need help.